This is Delhi. Please stand by for our next program. This is All India Radio. In the national program of Talks Tonight, we bring you an interview entitled In Search of the Wolf, in which Dr. Yadvendradev Jhala, Dean Wildlife Institute of India, is being interviewed by Dr. Qamar Qureshi, Professor in the Wildlife Institute of India. In Search of the Wolf.
Careful, Akira. You do not want to challenge me.
This cub is under the protection of the pack. Should you decide to take me, you take on the pack. Others. As long as I am leader, this part of the jungle is closed to you.
You cannot be leader forever.
Dear friends, we are having a world-renowned guest with us, Dr. Yadvendradev Jhala. We are going to discuss about wolf conservation. I'll tell you a little bit about wolf. So wolf is enigmatic species, charismatic, very interesting. And many of you have seen serial and a movie, Jungle Book, where wolf was a very famous character. Wolf is a landscape species, very difficult to conserve. And before I'll go further discussing about it, I will introduce Dr. Yadvendradev Jhala. Dr. Yadvendradev Jhala was associated with wildlife since his childhood. He is very passionate wildlifer and conservationist. He started his wildlife career with Virginia Tech, where he studied wolf and blackbuck dynamics. And later on, he did his postdoc at Smithsonian Institution in United States of America. After doing his study in US, he joined Wildlife Institute of India and he's Dean of Wildlife at Institute. He has more than 30 years of experience working on wolves. And I'm going to ask why he's studying wolf. What interests him to choose such a difficult species?
Thank you very much, Professor Qureshi, for that introduction. It has, as you said very correctly, it has been a passion. And the study of wolves started off as a consequence. I wanted to actually study the cheetah, but the cheetah was extinct in India at that point in time. And the closest system to studying a prey-predator interaction was then at that time between blackbuck and the wolf. The wolf has taken over the role of the cheetah in the dry, arid grasslands of India. And so I started looking at this interaction so that somewhere in the future, when I had the opportunity, we would try and bring back the cheetah back to India. So that was the basic premise of studying wolves and blackbuck. And I wanted something which would give me data for doing my PhD. So I started studying wolves way back in 1987 and continued, and I still continue studying the species, though my interests have increased to include many other large carnivores and ungulates. And we both have been working for so long together on the tigers. So that's the background of why wolf studies were actually initiated by me.
How you define wolf? What wolf is, and amongst the whole range of canids?
As you said, the wolf is an extremely dynamic predator which has evolved over millions of years. It is a basic model for what a carnivore should be. The genus Canis is an amalgamation of many species, and the uniqueness of this genus is that they share the same number of chromosomes. That is, they have 39 pairs of chromosomes. And nature has so made this genus that it can intermingle, hybridize between itself, and create new species or lend genetic material between them. So the canids, to which our dogs belong, dogs, wolves, jackals, golden jackals, coyote, the Ethiopian wolf, the golden wolf of Africa, which is newly discovered, together they form about 38 subspecies of different subspecies of the wolf and the genus Canis. The Indian wolves are quite different in the sense we are looking at a different status, a species level status for the wolves found in India. We believe to have two subspecies which are unique in the lineage of wolves, the peninsular Indian wolf and then the Himalayan wolf. The peninsular Indian wolf is believed to be older, the oldest lineage of wolf, which separated from Canis lupus, the generic and the species name of the wolf, about 110,000 years ago.
So you mean that the wolf actually evolved in India?
Not exactly so. The wolf prototype probably evolved in Eurasia. But the Indian subcontinent formed a Pleistocene refuge for wolves and a very ancient lineage of wolves which became extinct in the rest of the part of the world but continued to survive in India. And once the temperatures and the environment became all right, it exchanged genetic material across into Asia and into Persia and into African canids as well. The African wild dog, the African continent was devoid of wolves as we believed till the recent past, when the African golden wolf was discovered just about 8-10 years ago. So even the African wild dog, which is a different genera, the Lycaon pictus, has genetic material from the Indian wolf. See, the African golden wolf, which was earlier believed to be the same as the golden jackal in India, now today we know that it's not a jackal, but it's a wolf. Morphologically similar to the golden jackal.
Very interesting.
Yeah, but it's a wolf, so it's no longer a jackal. So it's
So
a
you
Canis.
mean that wolf came to India and they gone extinct everywhere else and then they colonized from India?
The lineage of the wolf, which is found in India, became extinct elsewhere, but not the wolves per se, which is Canis lupus, So there were wolves outside of India. They didn't become extinct. But the Indian lineage, the ancestral Indian lineage, was only left behind in India. So that particular branch of wolf evolution went extinct elsewhere, and then the gene flow from India has actually colonized and exchanged genetic material with other canids in these parts of the world.
I remember reading your paper, another species of wolf, Himalayan wolf.
Right.
Earlier we got to know there are only two subspecies of wolves, peninsular wolf and Tibetan.
Yes.
So can you just elaborate how many species and subspecies we have in India?
Yes, absolutely. So that, as I was telling you earlier, we believe that there are two separate species of wolves within India, though we have not yet claimed their species status, but genetic full genome sequences suggest that these two lineages of the wolf should be awarded full species recognition, and that is the Himalayan wolf, which is found in the Trans-Himalayas in the Tibetan plateau, and the peninsular Indian wolf, which is called Canis lupus pelipus, should be recognized as Canis pelipus, and the Himalayan wolf as Canis himalayensis, which is currently called Canis lupus chanko, or the shankhu as it's locally called. The uniqueness of the Himalayan wolf is that it has evolved to fit into the high altitude regions where it has genetic material which allows it to live in rare atmosphere. It has hemoglobin and genes which allow it to perform metabolic activities at rare atmospheric pressures of oxygen.
So you mean Chanko and Himalayan wolves are same or they are different?
The shankhu, as it's called in Tibet, is the same as the Himalayan wolf. But we also have the Tibetan wolf in China and parts of Tibet, which is Canis lupus, or the grey wolf, which is genetically very different, morphologically similar looking, but genetically different from the Tibetan wolf. And there is hybridization and zones of hybridization in China and in Tibet between these two subspecies or species of wolves.
So just leading to that question, both these wolves, peninsular and Shanko, they live in a fairly arid habitat and also in scrubland. But the other wolf, the grey wolf, they are forested. And these are scrub and grassland savanna wolf. Why it's so? Like why you think
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
such a difference?
See, the wolf has evolved as a predator on large ungulates, mostly. So in the boreal systems, in the temperate and the taiga and the tundra, they all prey on large herbivores. That niche of a large predator in the tropics is taken over by the cats, the large cats, the felids, the tiger, the lion, the leopard, which are non-existent. The puma is there, of course, in the northern boreal forests as well, jaguar in the south of America. But the wolves are equally matched because those wolves are much larger and the puma is a smaller cat compared to the tiger and the lion. So in these parts of India, there's also another canid, Cuon alpinus, or the dhole. And it is also a pack-living animal, probably this little smaller than the Indian wolf. So the wolf in India has been relegated to suboptimal areas, if you would say so, compared to the timber wolf or the wolves living in boreal forests. They are relegated to the deserts, the semi-arid, grasslands and scrubland ecosystems of India. And they are much smaller in size compared to the timber wolf. They weigh about 20 kilos, while the timber wolf can be anywhere from 45 kilos to 70 kilos. So they are about half the size of other Canis lupus found across the world. And this is an adaptation to live off smaller prey items. As I told you, they are found in arid areas where the cheetah was. So their specialty is in hunting gazelle, blackbuck, hare, and these would have formed the natural diet of the wolf in earlier times before humans came into, and the livestock industry came along with them. This is about 100,000 years ago on the Indian peninsular part of the planet. The Tibetan wolves, on the contrary, are of course arid adapted because there are no forests there. And they prey on, again, large ungulates. The kiang, the argali, the urial, the blue sheep, Tibetan gazelle, and maybe the chiru and yak. So they are again formidable animals, much larger than the Indian peninsular wolf, weighing close to about 45-50 kilos. So they are much bigger animals. And there is no competition except for the snow leopard. The snow leopard partitions itself as being in the cliffs, while the wolves are in the valleys and in flatter plateau areas.
As you very rightly said about competition, just want to know a little bit about the cheetah wolf competition. If you think at the time when cheetah was there in India, because you are working on cheetah and you have a bringing back cheetah in India, and you also have a great experience also working in Africa and understanding that system of cheetah and now newly discovered wolf. But in India specifically, about cheetah-wolf interaction. And so wolf is still persisting, but cheetah disappeared from India's forest.
Absolutely. The issue is the wolf has become nocturnal. In areas of human-dominated areas where wolves still survive, they normally come out and do their activity at night when human activity stops. The cheetah rely on sight for hunting and a lot on speed. Very visible animals and much larger animal to hide in open landscapes compared to the wolf. So they were persecuted. The wolf is there. I believe it's a very intelligent creature. Compared to the cats, there is no comparison. The dogs have far more intelligence. So many people will kill me for saying that, but the cat lovers especially. But yes, I believe that the wolves' adaptability to live alongside humans, avoid activity periods of humans in the landscape, while the cheetahs could not do that. And they were devastated by hunting mostly, and they needed prey to kill. So if a goat is killed by wolves, it's a pack. They would rip it apart and eat it, and there'll be no remnants found. A cheetah was going to kill, sit on it, eat. The herders would find out and probably persecute the animals much more than they would be able to do so with the wolves. So the cheetah went first. I think one of the first animals to become extinct on the Indian, or the only large carnivore to have been lost from the Indian subcontinent is the cheetah, and that too after our independence. The wolves are doing reasonably well compared to the cheetah.
So that has brought to me that reasonably well, like we worked together on tiger, and I've read many other papers of yours on counting various animals. Some are easy to count. Wolf, I think, is very difficult to count, and you've published very recently a paper on status. So can you tell us how to count wolf, and what is the current status or population of wolf in India?
As you said very correctly, wolves are notorious at estimating their numbers. You can actually get their presence absence quite well because they mostly the areas which wolves persist today, as they don't live in forests, they are not found much in protected areas. And I'll qualify that statement later as we go into our interview. But they live mostly alongside pastoralists, and they kill livestock. So if you want to find out about wolf presence, you just need to talk to the local communities and you know whether there is a presence or absence of wolves. But how many are there is a different question altogether. And the world around, the ways of surveying wolves are very different. You can put camera traps, but again, you will get presence absence from camera traps. They don't have unique markings like tigers do on their body. So the stripes of tigers are unique to each individual, but there are no such body markings on wolves. So you can't use your camera trap images to count animals. So people rely on howling. So a wolf, especially in the breeding season, if there's a pack around and you howl, the pack howls back at you. So there's a howling technique which allows you to count the number of packs around you. And if it is done systematically, you can count the packs and then know the average pack size and extrapolate on that. The other alternative is to put transmitters, radio collars on wolf packs, know the presence of wolves around in a two-stage sampling. First, get to presence-absence data, estimate average home range sizes from radio telemetered animals, and then extrapolate as to how many packs that area can hold based on the area occupied and the average home range size of a pack. That's the way most of the wolf estimations are done across the world, in the US and in Canada and other parts. In India, we did the same thing. We looked at our extensive camera trap data, old historical records, asking interviews of farmers, and we came to a presence map across the country. Subsequently, we had good data on telemetry from the work I had done and others which my colleague had done in Maharashtra by Satish Kumar and his students. And this was all put together to estimate home ranges of wolves within India, and that was extrapolated to give us the number of packs and subsequently the potential number of animals. So today we believe that the peninsular wolves are estimated to be close to about 3,000 individuals in entire country.
Almost equal to tiger population, very close to that.
Absolutely. But look at the difference, the same status, 3,000 tigers in India, 3,000 wolves in India. But wolves do not receive the same conservation attention as the tiger does. It's less charismatic. So the tiger hogs, as you started the interview, the Sher Khan in Jungle Book was the villain. Yeah, and Mowgli, raised by Akela and his pack, were the heroes of the whole thing. But I think the tables have turned now, and Sher Khan is now the hero of India, and Akela's pack has been, relegated to obscurity, basically. But the status is very precarious. It's as precarious as that of the tiger. And we definitely need to have urgent conservation policies for the wolf. And we can talk about them as we proceed further.
I just like to little more probe you on one more thing, because most of the protected area in our country, what I mean is they're more forested. If you look at semi-arid and arid areas and grassland and scrubland area of the country, very small portion of or proportion is represented in protected areas.
Absolutely.
And as you said, that wolf is not a forested species. So what do you think that what will be the future of the wolf, though they are 3,000,
right?
But it looks like more precarious, as you rightly said. But they are living outside largely in protected area system. So what will be the future in such scenario?
So I think I should give a little bit of a prelude before we go into this thing, So the wolves, unlike the felids, they live in family groups, just packs. And a pack consists of a breeding female and a male, which are called the alpha animals, and their progeny. Progeny of this year can live on with the animals, with the parents, and become sub-adults or even adults and stay back and help their parents raise their siblings. So this forms a family unit known as a pack, very different from a cat family, the tiger family or a lion family. Lions live in prides, but the female prides are what we see in Gir, and the males live separate lives, having many females covering their territories. The wolves, the male, the female, the father and the mother and their offspring live together as a family unit, much like human beings. And these packs have territories. And these territories, as you correctly said, are mostly in these agro-pastoral landscapes, where protection in the form of protected areas is minimal. But the wolves manage to survive. They've survived for thousands of years in these landscapes because human pastoralism and agriculture has been in our country for at least the last 8 to 10,000 years. So the wolves have managed to survive there. But today, the problem is very different. The issue is of fragmentation of the habitat by fast multi-lane highways, which these animals cannot cross. There's road mortality. The pack on one side of the road cannot have genetic exchange with wolves on the other side of the road. If they try to cross, they're killed. We do corridor management for tigers because it's very easy. You have a forested area, you put a flyover, the animals move from under it, and the cars move over it. We've done a wonderful job at developing corridors, underpasses for the flyover and highway number 7, which connects Nagpur to Jabalpur, cutting across the Kanha Pench corridor. But for wolf systems, where do you put the corridor? Because these animals can cross anywhere across a highway. So finding those exact locations where animal crossings can occur in an arid, semi-arid grassland mosaic is a very, very difficult task. So mitigation measures are not easy to come for animals and plants which live in the arid zone. But to conserve wolves, on the other hand, wolves require very little. They can live with people, provided you give them protection during a very critical life history stage of theirs. That is when they den and give birth, which is very precise for the Indian peninsular wolf, because all wolf packs that we have studied have given birth in the last 2 weeks of December and the first week of January.
What kind of den or denning environment they require?
So the female wolf, actually, when she is in her latter half of her pregnancy, the gestation lasts for 62 days. So after a month and a half, when she is, feeling the pups in her belly, she starts digging a den. So she could use artificial den sites like culverts in a drainage area or hollow tree trunks. But mostly the female wolf digs her own den. The male helps her. And they make a tunnel, which is about just very narrow enough for the mother to go in, and a chamber inside where she delivers her pups. It's a single narrow entrance den. The chamber is about 1 meter below the surface and is about 50 to 80 centimeters wide. And the mother lives there for about a couple of days before she gives birth. And once she has given birth, the pups are blind for 15 days. And they come out of the den when they just open their eyes, merely open their eyes at the age of about 15 days, 2 weeks old. And they remain at the den site, which is known as a rendezvous site, for the first 2 to 3 months. If this area is disturbed by human beings, then the pups are moved by the pack from one area to the other. And they remain in the vicinity. And this is the most critical life history stage of wolves, where they are often persecuted by, mostly they get killed by pastoralists discovering a den and smoking the pups to death. So they put vegetation into the entrance of the den and light it. And since there's a single entrance, the pups are smoked to death. So most wolf pups die like this. And sometimes mothers also die inside the den. And the other persecution which pastoralists use is poison. And poison is deadly because you can kill an entire pack and the entire carnivore guild in the region, vultures, foxes, hyenas, leopards, everything, when you poison a carcass. And this is most deadly and is often used as a fight against wolves. It's the most persecuted animal on the Indian soil.
That is, but what about natural predators?
Very few natural predators as such. I have not come across a single incident when wolves have lost their litter to a natural predator. But yes, hyenas, striped hyenas could potentially predate. Wolf, since they live in packs, they don't leave den unguarded. There's always an attendant at the den.
Somebody from the pack member.
Somebody pack member. That's the advantage. When a lioness has to go, she leaves her cubs alone in a lair and goes hunting or goes to drink, because she doesn't litter with the pride. She goes away and litters. The advantage of wolves is that there's family members all around. So that's a big advantage for wolves.
I like to know, as you also told about their relationship with humans. Very interesting, like Greco-Roman stories in Indian. So what is your perspective, a cultural aspect of wolf, and then probably look into what you highlighted, human-wolf conflict?
Absolutely. So wolves come into conflict with people all the time, because most of their natural prey has been depleted in areas where wolves live. So they feed on sheep and goat. And a loss of a sheep or goat to a poor farmer is a huge amount of economic loss. And this is the major reason for a conflict. People do believe that wolves attack and kill human beings, but that's not true. They rarely, very rarely would they attack a human being. The only exceptions being a rabid wolf. So a wolf which has got rabies is deadly in the sense, even a dog is deadly. So any animal which has rabies is going to be bad. And wolves can be very bad because they have the power to inflict severe damage. There was an incident where a wolf learned how to kill kids. And that happened in Uttar Pradesh, where there were more kids around than goats and sheep. And the goats and sheep were very heavily guarded compared to children. Children were allowed to roam freely in the fields. And the wolves, as you know, are very clever. And one of these animals learned that kids are very easy to kill. And this happened in 1986 in the district of Pratapgarh, Jaunpur, and in that region near Banaras. And this one wolf alone killed 53 kids in those days.
I remember those men wolf stories also.
Yeah, it was called the Manai, and people believed it was a supernatural being, but it was a wolf who had learned that kids were easy prey. But this is something which is extremely rare. In areas where there's good livestock or natural prey, wolves avoid humans like a plague. There is no way that you'll get close to a wolf to even shoot a dart into it to anesthetize it. You have to trap a wolf in a foothold trap before you can put a radio collar on it. So it's very difficult to get close enough to a wolf. It is going to run miles away from a human being.
So what do you think about what is the future of wolf in India?
If we are kind to the wolf, what they require are small pockets, as I was saying, during the critical time of their life stage. That is the breeding time of the year, where if we can give protection to even 2-3 square kilometers of habitat, which is devoid of people's disturbances in that phase, in larger landscapes spread 30-40 kilometers apart, small atolls, small hillocks, vegetation patches, sacred groves, orans. If these are protected, wolves will continue to survive. We need to make sure that poison is not used in our war against carnivores. It's illegal, but it should be strictly, there should be a vigil by the forest department and law enforcement agencies to make sure that poison is never used. If these two things are put in place, I think the wolves will survive for another 100,000 years on this subcontinent.
Let's hope for good future for wolf. And I thank you, Dr. Jhala, for making us understand about wolf conservation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Qureshi, for being the host.
Leave.
What?
You have turned the weapons of man upon us. You have brought the pack great shame. You have brought me great shame. Leave.
In the national program of talks, you were listening to an interview entitled In Search of the Wolf, in which Dr. Yadvendradev Jhala, Dean Wildlife Institute of India, was being interviewed by Dr. Qamar Qureshi, Professor in the Wildlife Institute of India. Produced and presented by Devendra Sivach of AIR Dehradun, this program was broadcast from the Delhi station of All India Radio.